My name is Jeff Nelson, and I'm here at the Q Street Bridge in Washington, D.C., which I've been obsessed with for many years, and I've actually been writing a book about it for 20 years. And we are here today, October 15th, 2006, to celebrate the recent cleaning of the Buffalo and the repatinization of it, which they did 2 months ago. And it was the first time it had been cleaned since the bridge was completed in 1915. It was built to cross Rock Creek. It connects the Georgetown part of Washington, D.C. with Kalorama and DuPont Circle part of D.C. I love the big bronze buffalo guarding the entrances, and then down below it basically looks like a small Roman aqueduct, and it's got Indian heads above the arches. And as a kid I always loved Romans and Indians, so I would imagine that is a big part of what made me love it. Glenn Brown, who's a renowned architect, he was the head of the American Institute of Architects. He designed it along with his son Bedford, so they started designing it in 1911, and then it was built from 1912 to 15. A committee in Georgetown decided we're going to have buffalo as the mascots. They just knew that. I think it was a time period when there was a lot of nostalgia for vanished America and things like that. I mean, there were literally very few buffalo alive at that point. That was just a given, and they immediately assigned the job of sculpting them to Alexander Phimister Proctor. So everything else about the bridge flowed from that decision to give it an American character. Proctor was an amazing guy, and the chapter on him really threatens to get out of control in my book. Proctor grew up in the West and was an avid hunter from early teens, and never stopped hunting. And he was the most famous animal sculptor of his day, and he did the Princeton Tigers. The Denver Broncos are called the Broncos because of his Bronco Buster statue, and he was just incredible. This is my good friend Sandy, the sculptor's grandson.
Hey. Wow, hi, how are you?
Just fine, thanks.
I've become really good friends with Sandy Proctor Church, who is the sculptor's grandson, who lives out in Washington State. And we became good friends, and he loved the fact that I was crazy about his grandfather, whose reputation he's been trying to resuscitate and revive. He has been collecting over the years, collecting plaster maquettes, original models of many of his grandfather's statues, that different relatives had. He's been collecting them together, and now he's selling very limited edition, high quality, modern day castings from the plasters. So I now own the first casting ever in bronze of the original 1912 plaster model. Sandy and his daughter have been working around the country in many different cities to get his Proctor's works cleaned up and restored. It took about 2 weeks in August, and it was the Jensen Conservation Company from Omaha, Nebraska. First they power washed the buffaloes, and they in places where there was paint and graffiti, they scraped and removed that. And then they heat up the metal with a propane torch and spray 2 different chemicals on there, depending on whether you want to go with a brown patina or a green patina. And brown was what it was originally, and so that's what we restored it to. And then once they've gotten it as even as they can, then it's given a protective layer of wax.
So it says Buffalo Johnson wax.
Because if you don't restore them and give them a protective coating, they're just eroding. The surface is corroding away with pollution and oxidation. So yeah, absolutely. Maybe there will be a renaissance in people being interested in this type of heroic, realistic statuary. Stuff I think is wonderful. But if there's not a resurgence, I can absolutely see terrible things happening. But I think we're going to lose art and our history, and we're going to forget how to make such beautiful things. Same with buildings if we don't take care of them. Absolutely, I'm crazy about architecture, and I love the time period when this was built. I love the turn of the century, and as far as I'm concerned, Western civilization sort of reached its zenith right with the advent of World War I, and aesthetically, I don't think ever achieved stuff of the same wonderfulness.